I'm going to be straight with you. This isn't one of those talks where I tell you it gets easier. It doesn't. What happens is you get stronger, you get tougher. You start understanding that the ground isn't your enemy. The ground is just feedback. The ground is just telling you that you tried something, and now you know what doesn't work. Most people hear that and they think it's just words. They think it's just something that sounds good in a speech. But I'm telling you, there's a difference between the person who falls once and stays down, and the person who falls 10 times and gets up 11. That difference isn't talent. It's not genetics. It's not having the right connections or the right circumstances. It's a decision you make in a moment when every part of you is screaming to quit. Let me tell you about that moment, because we all have it. That moment where you're so tired you can barely think straight, where you've given everything you had and it still wasn't enough, where the people you thought would support you are nowhere to be found, where you look at your bank account or your body or your relationships and you think, what's the point? Why keep going when it keeps going wrong? That moment is the whole game. That's where champions are made, not in the victory, not in the celebration. In that dark moment when you're alone with yourself and you have to decide who you really are. You want to know what I've learned from watching people who actually made it? The ones who went from nothing to something real. They all share one quality that nobody talks about. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. They don't need permission to start over. They don't need encouragement to get back up. They just do it because that's who they decided to be. Think about it. When you were a kid learning to walk, you fell constantly, every single day. And you know what you did? You got back up. You didn't think about it. You didn't analyze it. You didn't wait for the perfect conditions. You just stood up and tried again. Because you wanted to walk more than you wanted to stay safe on the ground. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. We started thinking too much. We started making the fall mean something about us. We started telling ourselves stories about why we can't, why we shouldn't, why it's too late or too hard or too risky. But here's what I know. That story you're telling yourself, it's not the truth. It's just fear wearing a mask. Fear dressed up as logic. Fear pretending to be wisdom. The truth is simpler. The truth is you fell. That's it. You tried something and it didn't work out the way you planned. Now you've got information. Now you know something you didn't know before. Now you get to decide what you're going to do with that information. Are you going to let it define you? Are you going to let one failure or 10 failures or 100 failures tell you who you are and what you're capable of? Or are you going to use it? Are you going to take that pain and turn it into fuel? I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I'm not telling you to pretend it doesn't hurt. It hurts. Of course it hurts. You put yourself out there. You risked something. You cared about something enough to try. And when you care, failure stings. That's how it's supposed to work. But there's a difference between acknowledging pain and living in it. There's a difference between feeling hurt and making hurt your identity. You can sit with the pain for a night. You can feel it fully. You can cry or scream or punch a pillow or write in your journal. Do what you need to do. But when the sun comes up, you make a choice. You decide if yesterday's failure gets to write today's story. I've seen people throw away years of their life because they couldn't get past one bad season. They had one business fail, one relationship end, one dream not work out the way they imagined. And instead of seeing it as part of the process, they saw it as the end of their story. They stopped trying. They settled. They told themselves they gave it their best shot, and it just wasn't meant to be. And maybe that's fine for some people. Maybe some people are okay with that. But I don't think you're one of them. I don't think you'd be here if you were okay with settling. I think you're still here because somewhere inside you, there's a voice that won't let you quit. A voice that keeps saying, get up, try again, you're not done yet. That voice, that's the real you. That's the version of you that knows what you're capable of. That's the version that sees past the current circumstances and remembers why you started in the first place. Let me ask you something. Why did you start? What was it that made you believe this was possible? What was the vision that got you moving in the first place? Because I guarantee you, that vision is still valid. The circumstances might have changed. The timeline might have shifted. The path might look different than you thought. But the core of why you wanted this, that hasn't changed. You wanted to build something. You wanted to become someone. You wanted to prove to yourself that you could do hard things. You wanted to create a life that felt like yours, not just one you inherited or fell into by default. That's still on the table, all of it. The only difference between now and then is that now you know more. Now you've tested yourself. Now you've got scars that prove you were willing to step into the arena. Most people never even get that far. Most people live their whole lives wondering what if. You don't have to wonder. You know what it feels like to try. You know what it feels like to fail. And now you get to know what it feels like to get back up. Here's something nobody talks about. The comeback is always more powerful than the first attempt. Always. Because the first time you do something, you're running on hope and excitement. You don't really know what you're up against. But the second time, the third time, you know exactly what it takes. You know what's coming, and you choose to do it anyway. That's a different level of strength. That's a different level of commitment. When you pick yourself up again, you're not just trying. You're declaring something. You're saying, I don't care how many times I have to do this. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't care if nobody believes in me. I believe in me, and that's enough. You know what the world does when it sees that kind of determination? It gets out of the way. Because most people quit. Most people fold under pressure. Most people take the easy path. So when someone shows up with real commitment, with real hunger, with real refusal to stay down, opportunities start appearing, doors start opening, people start noticing, but it doesn't happen overnight. And that's where most people lose it. They get back up, they try again, and when they don't see immediate results, they assume it's not working. They assume they're wasting their time. They start listening to that voice again, the one that says, maybe you're not cut out for this. Let me tell you about that voice. That voice is going to be there forever. It doesn't go away. Even the most successful people you know still have that voice. The difference is they don't let it drive. They hear it, they acknowledge it, and they keep moving anyway. You think every successful person wakes up feeling motivated? You think they all have their life together? You think they never doubt themselves or wonder if they're on the right path? They do, all the time. But they've learned something you need to learn. Feelings are not facts. Doubt is not truth. Fear is not a prophecy. You can feel afraid and still take action. You can feel uncertain and still move forward. You can feel like you're failing and still be making progress. Because progress isn't linear. It's not this neat upward line that goes from point A to point B. It's messy. It's all over the place. It looks like failure sometimes when really it's just preparation. Think about a seed underground. It sits in darkness for weeks. Nothing visible is happening. To an outside observer, it looks like nothing's working. But underground, roots are spreading, foundations are being built, strength is being developed. And then one day, boom, it breaks through the surface and everyone acts surprised. But the seed knew. The seed was working the whole time. That's you right now. You're underground. You're in the dark phase where nothing seems to be happening, where all your effort feels invisible, where you're wondering if any of this matters. But I'm telling you, it matters. Every single thing you're doing right now is building something. You just can't see it yet. So what do? You keep watering yourself. You keep feeding yourself. You keep showing up even when there's no evidence it's working. Because that's what growth requires. That's what transformation demands. You can't rush it. You can't force it. You just have to trust the process and do the work. And I know that's hard. I know you want proof. I know you want a sign that you're on the right track. But sometimes the only sign you get is the fact that you're still here, still trying, still fighting. That's the sign. That's the proof. The fact that you haven't quit yet means you're stronger than you think. You know what happens when you fall and get back up? You learn something about yourself. You learn that you're tougher than your circumstances. You learn that pain is temporary but quitting lasts forever. You learn that the worst thing that can happen isn't failure. It's never trying again. I've watched people sabotage themselves because they were so afraid of failing again that they stopped trying. They built walls around themselves. They played it safe. They chose security over possibility. And you know what happened? They regretted it. Every single one of them looked back years later and wished they had kept going. Wished they had taken the risk. Wished they had believed in themselves just a little bit longer. Don't be that person. Don't let fear steal your future. Don't let one bad season convince you that you're not meant for greatness. You are. You absolutely are. But greatness doesn't come to the people who quit. It comes to the people who get back up. Again and again and again. Here's what I want you to understand. Every successful person you admire has a graveyard of failures behind them. Every single one. They just don't lead with that. They don't make their identity about the times they fell. They make their identity about the fact that they got back up. You've got a choice right now. You can make this fall your story. You can tell everyone about how you tried and it didn't work and that's why you stopped. Or you can make the comeback your story. You can tell everyone about how you fell and got back up and kept going until you made it happen. Which story do you want to tell? Which person do you want to be? Because I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to pick you up and dust you off and tell you exactly what to do next. That's your job. You're the one who has to decide that you're worth fighting for. You're the one who has to believe in yourself when nobody else does. You're the one who has to get up in the morning and choose to try again. And that might sound lonely. It might sound unfair, but it's also the most empowering thing I can tell you, because it means you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need perfect circumstances or the right timing or a clear path forward. You just need you. You just need the decision to not give up on yourself. I know you're tired. I know you've been through it. I know there are days where you feel like you've got nothing left to give, but you do. You've got more than you think. You've always had more than you think. You just haven't been pushed far enough to see it yet. That's what the fall does. It shows you what you're made of. It strips away all the surface level stuff and gets down to your core. And at your core, you're stronger than you believe. You're more resilient than you know. You're more capable than you've given yourself credit for. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to stop looking at this fall as a failure. You're going to start looking at it as information, as education, as preparation for what's coming next. Because something is coming next. Something better. Something bigger. But only if you get back up. You're going to take what you learned from this experience and you're going to apply it. You're going to adjust. You're going to adapt. You're going to come back smarter and stronger and more focused than you were before. And when you face that same obstacle again, you're going to handle it differently because now you know better. That's how growth works. That's how you become the person who achieves the goal. You don't start off knowing everything. You don't start off perfect. You start off willing to try, willing to fail, willing to learn, willing to get back up. And every time you get back up, you're building something. You're building character. You're building resilience. You're building the kind of strength that can't be taught in a classroom or learned from a book. You're building the kind of strength that only comes from lived experience, from real struggle, from choosing yourself when it would be easier not to. That strength, that's what's going to carry you through everything else that comes your way. Because this won't be the last time you fall. Life is going to knock you down again. Different circumstances, different challenges, but the same fundamental question. Are you going to stay down, or are you going to get back up? And the more you practice getting back up, the easier it becomes. Not because the falls hurt less, but because you start to trust yourself. You start to know that no matter what happens, you've got what it takes to handle it. You've proven it to yourself over and over again. That's the real victory, not the external achievement, not the success that other people can see. The internal knowledge that you are someone who doesn't quit, someone who doesn't back down, someone who faces hard things and comes through them. You know what confidence really is? It's not thinking you'll never fail. It's knowing that even if you do fail, you'll figure it out. You'll survive it. You'll learn from it. You'll keep moving. That's real confidence. That's real power. And you build that one decision at a time, one morning at a time, one moment of choosing to try again when everything in you wants to give up. That's how you become unstoppable. Not by never falling, by never staying down. So let me ask you again, why not you? Why can't you be the person who turns this around? Why can't you be the comeback story? Why can't you be the one who proves everyone wrong, including yourself? There's no good reason. There's no logical reason why someone else deserves success more than you do. The only difference between you and the people you admire is that they refuse to quit. That's it. They just kept going. They fell. They got back up. They fell again. They got back up again. They did that until something clicked, until something worked, until they broke through. And you can do the same thing. You have the same 24 hours. You have the same ability to make decisions. You have the same access to information and resources and opportunities. The only question is whether you're going to use them. Are you going to use this pain? Are you going to use this failure? Are you going to use this setback as fuel or as an excuse? Because it can be either one. It's your choice. Most people use it as an excuse. Most people let their circumstances dictate their future. They point to what happened and say, "See, this is why I can't. This is why I'm stuck. This is why I'll never make it." But you're not most people. You wouldn't still be here if you were. You'd have quit already. You'd have moved on to something easier. But you didn't. You're still thinking about it. You're still feeling that pull. You're still hearing that voice that says you're capable of more. Listen to that voice. Trust that voice. Follow that voice. Because that voice knows something your fear doesn't. It knows what you're actually capable of when you stop holding back, when you stop playing small, when you stop protecting yourself from the possibility of failure. You know what the saddest thing is? It's not falling. It's not failing. It's not even staying down. The saddest thing is living your whole life wondering what would have happened if you had just tried one more time, if you had just given it one more shot, if you had just believed in yourself a little bit longer. Don't do that to yourself. Don't carry that regret. Don't be 80 years old looking back and wishing you had been braver. Be brave now. Be brave today. Be brave in this moment when it's hard and scary and uncertain. Because here's what's on the other side of that bravery: freedom, pride, self-respect, the knowledge that you didn't let fear win, the knowledge that you gave everything you had, the knowledge that you lived your life on your terms, not on the terms of your circumstances or your fears or other people's opinions. That's what this is really about. This isn't just about achieving some external goal. This is about who you become in the process. This is about building a relationship with yourself where you know you can count on you, where you know that when things get hard, you don't abandon yourself. You show up. You do the work. You keep the promises you make to yourself. That relationship with yourself is everything. Because you can lose money and make it back. You can lose opportunities and new ones will come. You can lose relationships and build new connections. But if you lose trust in yourself, if you lose respect for yourself, that's the thing that's hardest to rebuild. Every time you quit on yourself, you damage that relationship. Every time you give up when things get hard, you're teaching yourself that you're not reliable, that you can't be trusted, that when push comes to shove, you fold. But every time you get back up, you're rebuilding that trust. You're proving to yourself that you're serious, that you're committed, that you mean what you say. And over time, that adds up, that compounds. That becomes an unshakable foundation that no one can take from you. So this isn't just about picking yourself up again. This is about who you're becoming. This is about the person you're building. This is about the life you're creating through your choices and your actions and your refusal to quit. And I'm telling you, that person is worth fighting for. That life is worth building. You are worth the effort it's going to take. You are worth the pain and the struggle and the uncertainty. Because on the other side of all that is a version of you that you can't even imagine right now. A version that's stronger and wiser and more capable than you ever thought possible. But you have to walk through the fire to get there. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable. You have to be willing to face the fear and the doubt and the pain. You have to be willing to fall and get back up, again and again and again. That's the price. That's what it costs. And it's worth it. I promise you it's worth it. Because the alternative is living a life of regret. The alternative is playing it safe and wondering what could have been. The alternative is settling for less than you're capable of because you were too afraid to find out what you could actually do. Don't settle. Don't play small. Don't let this moment define you in the wrong way. Let it be the moment that changes everything. Let it be the moment you decided that you were done staying down, that you were done making excuses, that you were done letting fear run your life. Let this be the moment you take your power back. The moment you remember who you are and what you're capable of. The moment you decide that your dreams are worth fighting for and you're willing to do whatever it takes. Because that's what separates the people who make it from the people who don't. It's not talent or luck or circumstances. It's the willingness to keep going when everyone else quits. It's the willingness to believe in yourself when no one else does. It's the willingness to get back up one more time than you get knocked down. You've got that in you. I know you do. You've already proven it by making it this far, by surviving everything you've been through, by still being here, still thinking about it, still feeling that pull towards something more. So trust it. Trust yourself. Trust the process. And pick yourself up again and again and again, as many times as it takes, because you're not done yet, not even close. Your story is still being written, and the best chapters are still ahead of you. but only if you get back up, only if you keep going, only if you decide right now, in this moment, that you're not going to let this be the end. You're going to let this be the beginning of your comeback, the beginning of your breakthrough, the beginning of you becoming everything you were always meant to be. Let me tell you something else. You know what happens when you stay down, when you let that failure become your final chapter. You don't just lose the dream, you lose yourself. You lose the person you could have been. You lose the respect you have for the face in the mirror, and that's a price that's too high to pay. I've seen it happen. I've watched people give up on themselves and then spend the rest of their lives trying to justify that decision. They create entire narratives about why it was the smart choice, why it was the mature thing to do, why walking away was actually the brave move. But deep down, they know they quit on themselves, and that knowledge eats at them every single day. You don't want that. Trust me, you don't want to be the person who has to convince themselves that giving up was okay. You want to be the person who can look back and say, I gave it everything, I left it all on the field. Win or lose, I showed up fully. And here's the thing about showing up fully. When you do that, even if you don't get the outcome you wanted, you still win. Because you get to keep your self-respect, you get to keep your integrity, you get to keep the knowledge that you didn't back down from the challenge. That matters more than most people realize. That's the stuff that sustains you through everything else in life. That's the foundation you build all your other decisions on. That's what makes you someone who can be counted on, not just by others, but by yourself. Think about the people you respect most in your life. I bet they're not the people who had it easy. I bet they're not the people who never struggled. I bet they're the people who faced something hard and found a way through it. The people who got knocked down and stood back up. The people who showed you what resilience looks like in real life. That's who you get to be. That's who you are being right now, in this moment. As you decide whether to get back up, you're showing yourself and everyone around you what you're made of. You're demonstrating that you're not just talk, you're not just dreams and wishes. You're action, you're follow through. You're the kind of person who backs up their words with their behavior. And that's rare. That's actually rare in this world. Most people talk a big game. Most people have big plans. Most people will tell you all about what they're going to do. But when it comes time to actually do it, when it comes time to face the discomfort and the fear and the possibility of failing again, most people disappear. Don't be most people. Be the exception. Be the one who actually does it. Be the one who proves that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to quit. Because that's the secret nobody tells you. Extraordinary isn't about being born special. It's not about having advantages others don't have. Extraordinary is just ordinary people who kept going when everyone else stopped. That's it. That's the whole mystery. They just didn't quit. You think Michael Jordan never missed a shot? You think he never had a bad game? You think he never doubted himself? Of course he did. But he kept shooting. He kept playing. He kept showing up. And over time, that persistence turned into greatness. You think every successful entrepreneur nailed it on their first try? Most of them failed multiple times before they figured it out. But they treated each failure as a lesson, as data, as information they needed to get better. They didn't take it personally. They didn't let it stop them. They just adjusted and tried again. That's what you're learning to do right now. You're learning to separate the failure from your identity. You're learning that just because something didn't work doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you tried something and it didn't work. Now you know. Now you can try something different. And that's powerful. That's actually a superpower if you think about it. The ability to fail and not be destroyed by it. The ability to take a hit and keep moving. The ability to face rejection or disappointment or setback and say, okay, what's next? Most people can't do that. Most people take one failure and they internalize it. They make it mean something about their worth or their potential or their future. They let it define them. They let it limit them. They let it stop them. But you're different. You're building a different relationship with failure. You're starting to see it for what it really is. Not the end, just part of the process. Just one step on a longer journey. Just feedback from the universe about what direction to go next. And when you can do that, when you can fail without being crushed by it, you become dangerous. Because now there's no limit to what you can try. There's no limit to how many times you can experiment. There's no limit to how far you can push yourself. Because you're not afraid of the fall anymore. You know you can handle it. That's freedom. That's real freedom. Not the absence of challenge. Not the absence of difficulty. but the knowledge that you can face anything and come through it. That's what you're building. That's what getting back up over and over again gives you. And I'm going to tell you something else. Every time you get back up, you're not just building your own strength. You're giving permission to everyone watching you. You're showing them that it's possible. You're proving that regular people can overcome hard things. You're being an example of what's possible when you refuse to stay down. That matters. That ripples out. That affects people you'll never even know about. Because people are watching. They're watching to see what you do next. They're watching to see if you mean it. They're watching to see if you're really about that life, or if you're just another person who talks but doesn't walk. And when they see you get back up, something shifts in them. Something opens up. Because if you can do it, maybe they can too. If you can face your fear and keep going, maybe they can face theirs. If you can pick yourself up after falling, maybe they can too. That's the responsibility that comes with getting back up. You're not just doing it for you anymore. You're doing it for everyone who needs to see what courage looks like. For everyone who needs proof that it's possible. For everyone who's on the edge of quitting and needs one more reason to keep going. You get to be that reason. You get to be that proof. You get to be that example. And yeah, that's pressure, but it's also purpose. It's also meaning. It's also a reason to get out of bed and keep fighting even when you don't feel like it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about you achieving your goals. This is about you becoming the kind of person who inspires others to pursue theirs. This is about you raising the standard for what's possible. This is about you showing the world that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And you do that one decision at a time, one moment at a time, one choice to get back up at a time. It's not complicated, it's just hard. But hard doesn't mean impossible. Hard just means it's going to require everything you've got. And you've got it. You absolutely have what it takes. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission or tell you it's going to be okay. You're ready now. You've always been ready. You just need to decide. Decide right now that you're getting back up. Decide that this fall doesn't get to be your final chapter. Decide that you're worth fighting for and you're going to prove it through your actions, not just your words. And then start. Start small if you need to. Start scared if you have to. But start. Take one step. Make one move. Do one thing today that moves you forward. And then tomorrow, do it again. And the day after that, do it again. And keep doing it until it becomes who you are, because that's how transformation happens. Not in one big dramatic moment, in 1,000 small moments where you choose to keep going, in 1,000 small decisions to not give up, in 1,000 small actions that add up to something significant. You've got this. I know you do. You've already survived everything that's tried to break you. You've already made it through every hard day you thought you couldn't get through. You've already proven you're stronger than you think. Now you just have to keep proving it. Keep showing up. Keep fighting. Keep believing. And one day, you're going to look back at this moment, and you're going to be so proud of yourself for not giving up. You're going to see how far you've come, and you're going to realize that every fall was worth it. Every struggle was worth it. Every moment you wanted to quit but didn't was worth it. Because you're going to be standing in a life you built through sheer determination and refusal to quit. You're going to be living proof that dreams don't die unless you let them. You're going to be the person you always knew you could be if you just kept going. But that only happens if you pick yourself up. Again. Right now. Today. This moment. This is your moment. This is when you decide. This is when you prove to yourself and everyone else that you're serious, that you're committed, that you're not going anywhere. So get up. Dust yourself off. Take a deep breath. Look that challenge in the eye and say, not today. You don't get to beat me. I'm getting back up. I'm trying again. I'm going to keep going until I make this happen. And then do it. Actually do it. Don't just think about it. Don't just feel inspired for a moment and then go back to your old patterns. Actually change. Actually commit. Actually follow through. Because that's what separates the people who make it from the people who don't. Follow through. Action. The willingness to back up your words with your behavior day after day after day, even when it's hard. Even when you don't feel like it. Even when nobody's watching and nobody would know if you quit. You would know. And that's what matters. You have to live with yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror every single day. You have to know whether you're someone who keeps their promises to themselves or someone who doesn't. Be someone who does. Be someone who means what they say. Be someone who shows up for themselves no matter what. Be someone who refuses to quit, even when quitting would be easier.